I Am Alive is a survival horror video game developed by Ubisoft Shanghai. A quick cover of the story is the main character, your character, appears at his home city of Haventon, and it's been a year since the event. The event seems to have been huge earthquakes that shook America, and your character was on the west coast when it happened, and it's taken him an entire year to get to the east coast where his home city is. And when you get there, you go to your apartment looking for your wife and daughter. They're not there. It seems like the game is surrounded by you finding your wife and daughter, but instead of finding your daughter, you find a little girl called May. You help her mother and her mother's friend contact a boat that's off the coast of Haventon, which is a seaside city, I guess. And when you get the mother and the little girl on the boat, that's the story over. That's it. It's just a case of, right, okay, here's the boat, see you later. Oh, are you not coming with us? No, game over. That's it, game finished. Well, starting off, I wouldn't really call it a survival game. There is food and water in the game, but you don't have to eat or drink. I'm pretty sure you could get through the entire game without consuming any of those. And that's kind of one of the bad points of the game, actually, because I thought it was going to be a real survival game where you had to, every piece of food and every piece of water you find, you have to pick it up in order to, survive. But it's, when you come across stuff that you can pick up, you can just leave it there. It's not going to affect the game that much. You don't necessarily need it. Like I said, I was expecting a survival game where you would have to look in every corner, you would have to, look in every box to pick up a small, packet of biscuits or something because you're starving to death. That's just not the case at all in the game. I mean, you walk past hundreds of cars and you can't interact with any of them. And I don't mean you can't drive them, I mean you can't search them, which I would expect. There's ambulances and fire engines, which, other survival games you would look in to find useful items. That doesn't happen in I Am Alive. There's a couple of scenes where you're in a shopping centre, like a mall, and there's boxes of stuff everywhere, and there's counters full of boxes and little bottles, and it looks like there's loads of stuff to pick up, but there isn't. You can't pick up any of it. Inside the mall as well, there's a sort of medical area where there's like blood packs and syringes and stuff that you would think you would need in a survival game, but you can't pick up any of it, and it's useless pretty much. So I was kind of disappointed at that there's pretty much no scavenging in the game. There's no real survival. The only survival is don't get killed by an enemy. That's the only thing that can kill you in the game, or if you fall, but that's about it. And yeah, it's not really a survival game, I wouldn't call it. Another thing which is a big drawback, the first time I played it on normal mode, and I finished it in 4.5 hours. Yeah. And then I played through it again on hard mode to get the hard achievement. 2.5 hours it took me. So I got about 7 hours of gameplay out of the entire game. And that was not me just ignoring every other aspect of the game and just focusing on the main mission, because there is no other aspect of the game. It's just the main story, and that's it really. There are victims in the game that you can help out, give them food, give them medical attention or whatever, but they don't really offer you anything in return. I mean, I played through it again because I just wanted to complete it on hard, and I wanted to record some footage for this video, but when you complete it once, there is no incentive to go back and play it all again. Yeah, the victims that you help, they give you retries. Like if you're halfway through a mission and you die, you go back to your last checkpoint if you've got a retry available. But if you run out of retries, you have to start the whole mission again. But if you play it on hard mode, you don't get any retries at all, so there's no incentive to help the victims there. When you help a victim, they give you information about what happened to Haventon right after the event, giving you clues about where your wife and daughter might be. But stuff that they tell you, you can't do anything with that. They say like a camp set up at the north of the city you can maybe check out, but from what I heard, it got overrun by bandits. But you can't go to the north of the city to check that out. It's a pretty linear game with all these victims telling you information that you can't do anything about. You can't use that information to help find your wife and daughter because that's not available to you, basically. So yeah, once you help the little girl and their mother, I thought that was just the prologue, getting you used to the game mechanics or whatever. And then once you got the little girl and their mother on the boat, your real mission began, finding your own family. But that's not what happens. It just finishes. And it was kind of, that's probably the worst part about it. It just finishes. And I'm not sure if there's any plans on making a sequel, because it leads up to a sequel in a sense that it doesn't finish the story, but also it ends the story as well. Spoiler alert. Throughout the game you've been carrying a video camera and you've been doing a sort of vlog, talking to your wife, so to speak. Throughout you see someone watching the video camera every now and then at the very end it zooms out and there's a woman watching the video camera and she's crying, and then it zooms out even further and all the equipment you've had throughout the game, you know, like your bow and arrow, your gun, your machete, your bag, your torch, is sitting on a table, you know, kind of indicating that you've probably died, and the woman watching the video is your wife. Okay, now I've talked about the bad stuff. I'm going to go into the good stuff about the game now. I liked the game overall. I mean, the shortness of the gameplay, you know, you only get a few hours out of it. That kind of ruins all the good stuff about it. So a couple of good stuff that I liked about it was the combat system. The combat system, I think, should be implemented in more games. Like when you come across like a group of enemies, like you walk around the corner or you go into a room, the enemies don't just open fire on you instantly. But yeah, you can allow people to come towards you. You can kill one of them, and if you point your gun at who's just got a melee weapon, they'll stop and they'll put their hands up and stuff, which is quite realistic. And some of them are sort of more cowardly than others, I suppose you could say. If you point your gun at them for long enough, they would drop their weapon and they would go down on their knees and put their hands behind their head. Whereas some other ones, they would stop at first and be like, you know what, I don't think you've got any bullets in that gun, or I don't think you've got it in you to kill. So they get fed up waiting and they'll just charge at you, regardless of you pointing a gun at them. But yeah, the sort of the combo kills, I suppose you can maybe call it, was pretty good. I mean, even though I've said it's a short game, but I never get tired of the combat system that's been implemented in it. The stamina as well that you have, that your character has, I think that was really good. It might sort of annoy some players, but for me, I think it was really good. The stamina, by default, you walk. If you want to run, you can run, but your stamina goes down and you have to stop to let it regen. And to climb buildings, you have to sort of look at the building and see where you can aim for to stop for a break to get your stamina back so you can continue. If you just keep climbing and your stamina goes to 0, you'll eventually fall. But yeah, stamina, I like the stamina in it. Another point that I liked was the environment and just the colours. You know, it's pretty much black and white throughout because you're in a city. Buildings have fell over and there's just dust everywhere. Everything's covered in dust, and there's a few moments where you get up, you know, on top of a building and you can see the sun and all that, and it's really nice looking. And when you're in buildings as well, when there's fire, there's, you know, you can see colours, but it's all dark and dingy. And I think it's just, overall, if there was a sort of world-ending event like earthquakes that pretty much destroyed an entire country, I would say that this was probably an accurate representation of what would actually happen to civilization. Bullets are rare in the game. That's like, you don't want to shoot everyone you see, because I don't even think there's enough bullets in the game to shoot everyone you see. So you want to use melee weapons, and you don't want to shoot. You only shoot as a last resort, i.e. they're sprinting towards you, getting ready to chop your head off with a machete. That's the only time that you should be shooting someone. Food and water, even though your character doesn't need it, it's, you know, it's quite rare to come by. Bullets are rare to come by, and the streets are kind of ran by gangs. So I would say overall it's quite realistic, although I couldn't really accurately say what realistic is, because I have no first-hand experience of what a world like that would be like. So let's give marks out of 10. I would say for the characters that are in the game, I would probably give it maybe like a 8 or 7. There's like 4 characters in the game anyway. You, May, who's a little girl, Linda, her mother, Henry, her mother's friend, and Linda, the little girl's mother. You only see her for like 10 minutes in the game anyway, because when you save her, it's time to go get the boat, so it's like you don't really have a lot of time with her. You have a lot of time with a little girl though, and you sort of develop a little bond with her, and yeah, you want to see her to safety. The other character, Henry, that's the mother's friend, he is in a wheelchair, so you kind of feel sorry for him. You know, he's in a wheelchair and he's in this world where, you know, being in a wheelchair is like the worst possible scenario for him, really. There's not much character development because, yeah, there's actually no character development because the event happened a year ago, so your character, he's already used to everything, so you don't see him changing from a simple businessman, let's say, into a sort of hardened survivalist. Yeah, you know what, I'm going to give the characters a 6 out of 10. Oh, you know what, a 5 out of 10, thinking about it, because there's only 4 characters and there's no bad guy. Like, there's no leader of the bad guys, so you don't have, like, each time you encounter bad guys, it's just sort of waves you fight. And even at the very end of the game, you just fight one last wave of enemies, and then that's it. There's no leader of the gangs who you have to sort of pinpoint your hatred towards. So yeah, 5 out of 10 for characters. Gameplay. I would say the gameplay was, I really enjoyed it. See, climbing the buildings and with the stamina and such, you know, the combat, the fighting and stuff. I really enjoyed it. You know, I never get tired of the fighting, the combat mechanisms. I never get tired of that. The climbing was fun as well, especially, you know, the further you got into the game, the sort of more challenging it would be. You know, like you're climbing a drain pipe, you're running out of stamina, you're near the top, but the drain pipe starts sliding down the building, it's falling off, and it was fun. You know, the gameplay, I would give it, let's say, maybe an 8 or a 9 out of 10. It was good gameplay. The story, 4. Like the shortness of the game. I mean, thinking about it, the story of the game was you're trying to find your wife and daughter, but you get nowhere near that throughout the game. And the game is far too short for the story to develop, for any story to develop, in my opinion. So I would say the story was a 4 out of 10. I'm afraid to say. Graphics, I would say the graphics they're all right. You know, maybe a 6 out of 10. Yeah, graphics were average. For the game overall, I would maybe give it a 7 out of 10. And that 7, it's not an average of the other elements that I've just given a rating out of. It's just, you know what, maybe a 6 out of 10. I mean, the shortness of the story. I mean, how much did I pay for it? I paid like £7 for it on Steam. It was on a Steam sale during winter. And I bought it for £7. And I'm still kinda... That's it. You know, I only paid £7 for it, but I'm still feeling a bit cheated. I would hate to think people paid £30 for it, you know, when it was new, for a few hours of gameplay. I mean, that's a lot of money for a few hours. So, yeah, 7 out of 10. Yeah, the reception. Yeah, I'm on Wikipedia, and the reception of the game from other, you know, big name websites and reviewers, they're giving it about a 7, 6. Yeah. Right, between 65% and the highest is 8 out of 10. So between 6.5 and 8.5 is there. Oh, IGN gave it a 4.5 out of 10. So yeah, about a 7 out of 10 overall for the game. Would I recommend it? If it's on sale, if it's below £7, I mean, I paid £7 for it and I'm still feeling a little bit cheated. If you can get it for cheap, less than $10, go for it. It's a good game, it's fun, a little bit different from what's out there. I would recommend it if it's on sale.